we can go for it. Brilliant. I'll kick us off. So I guess thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope your day's been lovely so far, or at least ends on a high with this webinar. So today we're going to be exploring communities of practice, really as that accelerator for data and AI capability. So with that, we're going to be covering the concept of communities generally, get some first-hand input from a really incredible customer of ours, and share some advice for you to be able to implement these in your business and take some steps as you go forward. We'll start with a very brief introduction. You can see our wonderful faces on the page, but I'll start with myself. I'm Danny, Director of Customer. So I work really closely with our clients like Engie and Jonlee on the screen to deliver their programs and make sure that what we're designing actually lands and does drive the real change that the business wants to see. So as I said, I'm joined here by Jonlee and Jess today, and I will hand over to yourself, Jonlee, to do your introduction, if that's okay.
Hi, Danny. Yes, thanks. So yes, I'm Jonlee Lockwood. I head up data at Engie B2B UK. Been heading up data functions across various organisations for around 10 years, been in data for far too many decades now. Started off as a DBA, so that's my track coming up through the technical side of things. But yeah, looking forward to discussing communities today.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonlee. Jess, want to take it away?
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm Jess, Communities and Events Manager at Data and AI Literacy Academy. I like to say I've got two sides to my role. Community in the center of that, one of them being the communities of practice, the sessions, the actual content, and then the other side I've got the learner events. So the two kind of combine quite nicely together to create communities as a whole. I'm going to be going to a little bit more depth today with Jonlee and Danny around communities of practice. What is the purpose behind them, what they actually are, and then a little bit more in depth about the learner event side. So making things exciting with data escape rooms, learner events in terms of graduations, road shows, and then, yeah, just communities as a whole. But I'll pass over to Danny before I get kind of stuck into that, to talk a little bit more about like change management.
Awesome. Yeah, so before we get into why you're all really here, I do just want to frame, I guess, communities in the model of change that at Data and AI Literacy we use. So we follow the change model of ADKAR. So ADKAR, as you can see on the screen, covers the 5 stages that an individual moves through as they process change. So as you can see here, it's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. Theory, it's simple. Kind of does what it says on the tin, but if you do skip a stage, we do tend to see that the change doesn't necessarily hold. So we'll start with awareness, and that's about people really understanding the change that is happening, and probably more importantly, like, why is the change happening to them, which is followed by desire, and that's the individual's personal motivation to engage with the change or actually process that change. So really the what's in it for them. And those two are foundational, and they're not a skill, they are a mindset and a behavior as a starting point. So once you move through awareness and desire, you end in knowledge, and that's the actual learning, so the content, the how-to, and then you follow into ability, and that's really the practical capability to apply the knowledge in the day-to-day. So does their role allow them to apply the change? What's different for them? So to cover those, the third and the fourth marker, the knowledge, ironic, is the knowing, and the ability is the doing. And they are treated separately. They are different conditions. It's a different environment. So we end on reinforcement in the ADKAR model. And that really is about making the change stick once the training has ended. And without that, ADKAR does tell us that people can slowly drift back into old behaviors, no matter how good the first 4 stages are and how much effort you've put into them. If it's not reinforced, if something hasn't changed for them to really use those the kind of behaviors, the skills we've given, they will move back into the old status quo. And reinforcement is how you make change scalable, and it's how it's sustained, and it's where communities fit in. It's a fantastic lever for this. So hopefully that does paint a picture as today why we're speaking about communities. But I'm going to hand over to Jess, who will kind of paint that picture, and Jonlee will layer on top about that actually being in a real world example. So Jess, hand to you.
Great, thanks, Danny. Yeah, I think a good starting point from that is what actually are communities of practice, and what do the sessions actually entail on that. And that is, communities of practice sessions are designed essentially to keep momentum going, right? To keep momentum, boost engagement, bring the cohort back together during the down months of learning. I think in that sense, the program and like Data and AI Literacy Academy acts as that catalyst, right, to kind of kickstart communities, support clients with the communities of practice. As I mentioned in previous sort of sessions when it comes to communities, is that we join clients where they're already at. So Jonlee, kind of, there was already a communities of practice sort of in place, and it's definitely something that's been in conversation with yourself and with Engie. But it's the case that we actually meet them where they're already at in terms of, are you starting from scratch? Do you already have a self-sufficient like data and AI communities of practice? I don't want to jump from left to right here because I have just jumped onto the right-hand side with the life cycle there. But the community of practice sessions actually entail, we talk through what actually is the purpose of that. What are the importance of communities? We celebrate achievements. We showcase learner demonstrations. We get people to stand up and say, I've done this month based off of the learning. I've saved X amount of time from solving this problem, and this is how the program has supported me through that. We go through highlights from the program and the impacts from the modules. We also hand out awards. So that's actually something we did quite heavily with Jonlee and Engie. But the main part is that we talk about the real business problems, right? So making sure that people are at the center of community, and that this isn't just a program that's just being forced down people's throat. It's the fact that they're actually supporting the education and learning from it, but actually changing the business at the same time. That being said, I think that's where most of the sessions, a lot of things come out of. As Brits, we like to complain about a lot of things, but I think it's the purpose that when people are given the space and the opportunity and the environment to kind of say openly and honestly how they feel about things, that's when they take the opportunity to actually say, this isn't working, this maybe isn't working either. But I think specifically with Engie as well, one of the main things is that this was the opportunity for people to close feedback loops. I think quite a lot of the sessions that we did, someone would say something about, I can't get access to this or that, and Jonlee would just say, I'm going to stop you right there because we're already working on that, or we've already solved that problem. But yeah, that's the premise of community sessions. I don't know if you want to add anything there, Jonlee, specifically about what we did in those sessions and how that kind of went as a process in general.
Yeah, I think, you covered quite well. I think the other thing to add as well is what we started to do is, bring your successors to the meetings. And it's not about a single statement or an initiative. It's actually bring the people that you helped. So where they were reaching out to people within their own department or teams, we found it really useful that they would, oops, I've just lost everything, sorry.
You're still there.
I'm still there. Sorry, I lost everything and knocked something off my desk. So great live, Davina McCall kind of stuff. So yeah, so bringing people to those meetings, I thought really helped with the engagement and the recognition. Yes, it's all good that we have financial recognition or award ceremonies, but having, for me, the way I like to operate and is recognize. See that recognition, see that change happening. So yeah, we evolved that. We didn't do that in the early days, but we felt, through the second parts of the engagements, it really drove home that sense of achievement.
Yeah, I think definitely in this instance, it was slightly easier potentially because you already had that group, that champions group that was already situated. But I do know that obviously we gave you some more from the program. So I know there was a couple of learners that we said, I think they should join the community's sessions and the champions community specifically, because they had been saying some fantastic things from the program. They've been saying like different activities they'd been doing. I think you hadn't even heard of a few of them yourself. I know Saskia had, but it's that sort of narrative between the program and the communities, which is quite the nice tie. It's like you might not be able to see everything everyone is doing all of the time, but we kind of have that lens into being like, oh, actually we can see what people are saying and what they're doing and how they're improving. and this person is a real champion for that, for clearly the program, and therefore we can kind of give them to you. So I definitely think the awards was such a fantastic thing. And I'll go into a little bit more depth on the next slide about motivation, but like handing out monetary vouchers to people is definitely a motivation for getting them to stay engaged. I know I would also feel that way about it. But I'll step on to the next slide there, just because it kind of fits quite nicely, as talk a little bit more about the purpose. I like to see this from two sort of lenses. So first being, what's the company's purpose? Why would you do it as a company? Have these community sessions, have these champion committees, and grow that. And that being to develop future leaders. I think that's definitely the key one, the second one there. Whether that's people that you might not recognize, or maybe don't even have the title of someone more senior, but being able to see that and have that view within these sessions and us support you with that is definitely something that I think is key to pushing programs like ours, but also like internal data and AI strategies as well. Also the breaking down of silos. So within the champions committee, obviously we've got people from different angles of the business, and I know we mentioned before about phase 2, like getting more champions on board. Can they be from different parts of the business as well? So connecting them, bringing them together. Might be the case that people are facing similar challenges, and actually that's a thing that people need to face, and that's why these sessions are put together. The fourth one there on the right hand side, the learning, the ROI, definitely for the company, but actually the flip side is the individual. Like, why is it that an individual should come to the community practice sessions? Like, why should they even be there in the first place? They're very busy people. They might be like, I haven't got half an hour to come to these sessions. Like to see it as two different lenses. You got your intrinsic, your extrinsic motivations. So that being the prize giving, the award giving, the kudos. And then some people are motivated by standing up and saying, I've actually saved 100 hours of work this week. I've saved the company X amount of money. Obviously differing depending on the company, what that might be. Some people might be motivated by just supporting the company in general and trying to solve problems and that kind of thing. But seeing why people would come and linking that to the purpose, you're able to sort of angle communities of practice in different ways. And I know that's definitely something that you've targeted, Jonlee, is through the awards and kind of going through different lenses. I know, Danny, I know you know a lot about like incentives and that kind of thing. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on top of that. I know I just went on a massive tangent just then, but
no, I think from a what's driving the individual to see like the value, but I guess the bigger picture, I think it helps like tying these to individuals like objectives. Like, it's not just side of desk, like getting that sense of purpose. And I know kind of Jonlee, that champion network at the start, it really wasn't just like a side of desk. It was really seen as like an enabler to the business. I guess how did you start with that initial purpose in the community? That was the first one at Engie. Like, what was the reason and the purpose for that one to get going?
Well, we started the program slightly different to, I think, how a lot of organisation would start, because we had a clear ask that we wanted to get some form of ownership, some sort of stewardship. I felt that some of the key aspects for setting up those communities were that we needed to get out to the wider organisation, the why, right? You know, data for me is everywhere. Everybody says that they understand data. But what we did with the communities is when we went out and engaged is we got people that were excited about data. And that they are, I know that this sounds a little bit cheesy, but they are everywhere, right? You've got your finance people doing Excel, you've got people tinkering, and, you know, with webcasts like this being, you know, spread around LinkedIn, you start to really drive home that you have got that sense of, you know, people out there in the communities. We did have some challenges, I think, to go off on a slightly tangent in getting there, because as you said there, Danny, it can be side of desk, but we created a sense of a vision of what we wanted to get out of sort of a short-term window, and that was education. We helped with the education as well. It wasn't just about you're a champion. Thank you. We got them into workshops. We designed the workshops specifically for, data and AI literacy, designed the workshops with that value in mind. And then we were trying to then set short-term goals of everybody. So yeah, I did ramble on a little bit, but it was a challenge to start with, but through the engagement and really adding value to what we was trying to do, or for us to articulate what the value was, really brought a sense of community to those individuals.
Yeah, I don't want to jump ahead of the script here, but I know Carwyn, Customer Success and Delivery Manager at Data and AI Literacy Academy, that was a mouthful, mentioned you'd obviously been bringing champions in to sort of support with success metrics and like the actual program itself and getting feedback. Could you tell us like a little bit more about that, what you've been doing with them?
Oh yeah, that's a tough one because what you try to do with a lot of these things around training and education and things like that, they can be quite subjective. So what we've tried to do is sort of work with the communities and wider people. We did quite a big workshop with the executive of what some of those successes could look like. So a lot of it's around engagement. It's around some of the finer grain ones, which are not necessarily to do with the community, but the overall program is, people's participation in whether they just be the education or the events that we're going to start to do, because we're starting to talk about, let's have a data event, let's have a summer bash of those to keep not just the community engaged, but the wider organization that we're trying to bring on the journey of data literacy. So, it's interesting, some of them, because they were very subjective, but I think how we're aligning to data quality, that was a massive theme from our executive. When I think everybody listening to the call will say that they don't have perfect data. So we're trying to attribute and put sort of some lineage or track to data quality as well. So there are some factual things that we can do, but also the timeliness of how we bring those to the relevant committees and relevant forums that we've got within Engie.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know, obviously, with the Champions Committee, it's about growing that, right, and finding those new people and being able to support those decisions, which is really fantastic. It's the challenge of like getting them, finding them, and growing that in the first place. But once you get there, then it's about making that meaningful change and making that route down what you were just mentioning previously. I will
just to interject there, I think what you're doing really well, Jonlee, is like those champions in the network that you started with. Obviously, your program's evolving and it's growing, which is brilliant. Is using them to input into the next round, so it's giving them that sense of contribution and ownership in the direction going forward, and that ripples. People speak to each other, especially in a community of like, okay, you can come to this and you can shape the change that you maybe don't. The frustrations you feel, the friction. So it's like a full circle moment in what you're doing there. I think it's really well done.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that they don't know about yet, because I guess I'm breaking the news now, is what we did on phase one. The one good thing about the education piece that we do with you guys is we customize the learning. There's a lot of time and effort from both parties, in customizing it, whether it be certain data references or terminology and things like that. What we're going to be doing with some of the champions is we're going to be bringing those into those customization pieces as well. So we've got quite a big segment of data for business professional and data for business. So they're going to be helping shape that those cohorts of education as well. So we're making them feel more engaged with the program. And one of the champions is also helping shape the project as well. So it's not just a traditional data initiative. It's a full business initiative.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really fantastic. And I think in the community sessions as well, we did quite a few feedback bits just in that. So it's great to see that just explode, I guess, in that sense. And the learner, they are at the heart and center of the education, and therefore they should have a say in what journey they're taking on. So it's great to see that approach being taken forward. I will move on to the next slide, just a little bit more about what I guess we can offer and what we've also done with our other clients. We've been very close with Jonlee on the champions community. But with a lot of our other clients, they also need support setting up governance committees. One of our clients set one up completely from scratch, and it's now growing, and it's part of their sort of strategy. We also do data steward, data owners community. So that's about empowering those data stewards, data owners to sort of showcase their data sets, what they're doing to change them, how are they improving them, and we make it a little bit more accountability based, which I think is important. But we also celebrate those wins and we connect those people together. I guess it is a caveat and a sort of road off of the communities of practice, very similar in its concept, but it's just nice to know that there's actually different angles you can kind of take with communities. It's not just champions community, which is fantastic and it's such a driver for business, but there's also so much more you can do with communities to make it, yes, cohort specific, but actually to grow that, make it community specific, make it company wide specific, especially with the communities of practice. That is something you can really grow and not just make it that niche driver. You can make it, oh, let's find out a little bit more this week. I've got an hour free on a lunchtime to find out a little bit more about what someone's doing with the dashboard or something along those lines. So it's about that growth and that sustainability. And from Data and AI Literacy Academy, we support our clients with that alumni community. So when the program finishes, when the learning finishes, it's not about, oh, that's it. It's about that just continuous growth, and seeing the change over time, because realistically, we're not going to see potentially everything as soon as a lesson ends. It's about that growth and seeing that as time goes on. Just move on to the next one. So all the fun stuff. Danny and I love going to the events, which is great. As you can see us on the right-hand side there. Community is so much more than just communities of practice sessions. They are designed to be slightly informal in their being, that being you can be open and honest and have those challenges. But actually, community is about the graduation, it's about the roadshow events. We've started doing data escape rooms. I'm actually doing one just after this session today. Hackathons, challenges, DL assessment drives. So that's where Danny and I were up at the right hand side there. So that gamification element. And actually in a lot of our community sessions with our clients now, we're starting to do, let's say we do a month bi-monthly basis or a monthly basis of community sessions. 1 month we might do a 30-minute data escape room, and then the next month we make it specifically about challenges. The next month might be a graduation to finish the cohort up. So it's about like keeping that engagement piece going, making it fun, having that gamification element to it. I know we were meant to have an event with Engie, but definitely something on the cards, I think, Jonlee, to get that engagement piece going, that in-person element. And these are just a couple of the things that kind of we can do, and the options are endless. Keep the challenges going. I'm still trying to come up with different concepts, be creative. So open to anything in terms of that aspect.
Yeah, a nice stepping stone actually is the next question I was going to ask Jonlee there. I guess when it does come to kind of the momentum and making behaviour change, or helping communities actually drive the behaviour change you want to see, how is Engie approaching that with everything Jess has just mentioned there, all the varieties of engagement that you can go through?
Oh, yeah, so we've got the communities, which I think is great. And as I said, we've talked about some of the key aspects of, you know, having sort of data days and those kind of things, because it's about because what, you know, the teams itself, certainly let's take the traditional IT teams, the data teams, we've got vast amounts of knowledge, technical skills, and more now, and people around the business are also catching up with those skills. So you know, what we're trying to do is engage through those communities to harness those. So I think, you know, for me, that's how we're driving that change, is that we're seeing these people as an advocate to get to faster to insights, better data quality and everything else, and it's not seen as a central piece. So I think that's massively important to get that engagement. So we're doing a lot of those. You know, could we do more? Absolutely. We simply don't have the time at the moment, but we've definitely got things on the roadmap where we will be doing those kind of initiatives. One thing that we've decided to do, and this is not because of you guys also including artificial intelligence or AI in your name. We did have other communities where we've joined together because we've seen that there's very much a likeness, and we wanted to streamline the communities that are out there. So that's actually brought data professionals with business representatives. So where we're getting more and more AI, because that's the big thing at the moment. How can we save? How can we be more efficient? How can we drive change? Is all through data, but AI. And guess what? Good data, or AI needs good data. So that's what we're trying to sort of bring into those levels of communities as well. I guess to answer the final part of what did we have to unlearn, I think the initial training where you do things, for me, is you're generally told that you know the idea that you've been told something, you know about it. The big thing that sold me with the Data Literacy Academy, sorry, Data and AI Literacy Academy, I will get there eventually, is Greg always said it's about repetition. And I think that's what's been the key value for me in these things, that it's not just about, you know, we're giving them education. We're going to be constantly doing these things. We're going to be constantly doing on-demand training. We're going to be constantly hitting data owners, data leaders, data stewards, communities, and the wider piece of individuals through the various mechanisms and communities that we have.
Yeah, and I think as you've touched upon that, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into doing that. And, you know, as you said there, so people turning up, you kind of got to know the investment and the value to them. I think evidence in value, especially when it comes to like literacy, cultural change, behavior change, is very hard to quantify. So when it comes to Engie accepting and growing that community base, like how have you had to navigate the upward awareness of the value that they bring, and then also to the people participating of like why they should turn up? What have you put in place, and what's been a bit of an organic catalyst?
Upwards to leadership. I think at the beginning of the call, I mentioned that we structured the first phase of the program slightly differently, where we engaged with leadership first. So we did a big education piece around for what we call Data for Leaders. It's part of one of your portfolio. I would imagine you know that, but for others. So we really drove home and had some really good engagement through, you know, the leadership element. We had a mixture of executive people on there. We had heads of, directors of, management, team leaders. So we really starting from the top, and the communities element that we started also. We're also starting within the business. So hopefully then when people start, the community people start discussing with leaders and others, they're all aligned. So the practice wasn't anything unusual. I just thought that it worked really well, because sometimes you have to start from different angles, get the exec in and others. So it wasn't very difficult, I don't think. It just became more effective of how we engaged with leadership first, and they just got it and they were aware. And then what that made is for them to then dedicate more time, because let's say they said, oh, well, we've got a workshop for a few hours with the Data Literacy Academy. Yeah, great. We're all bought into this. So it drove those kind of behaviors right from the top, which was, without that, I think it's like any change with any organization. It doesn't have to be data literacy. You've got to have that buy-in from the top.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and sometimes timing isn't perfect, is it? You can't always go leadership first and then that follows. It's one of them's got to start before the other can take momentum. But it was great that they lined up for you. Perfect.
Yeah, and it's the behaviours, right? And I think what people started to see, and this is what we sort of discussed with the communities when we first started out, is that behavioural aspect, and we can show that the confident. Because that's the big thing about the program. It's making people data confident. Yeah. You know, it's not necessarily just about fixing the data. It's about understanding how to challenge it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was just going to add as well that I think it was the first community session that when I came back in to kind of support them to kickstart them going again, I remember someone specifically saying that they had noticed the drip feeding effect. And I think that's kind of sums up what you were just talking about, me with my great memory, remembering that. But I just think it really sums up the whole thing, is that they were seeing that definitions were being used with people who weren't even on the program. I think that Engie specifically has that sort of culture where they want to learn more. And it really shows across with this community practice where someone has actively said, oh, I can actually see people who haven't even done any learning yet, that this effect is beginning to start and the change is beginning to come about. I think it definitely helps when you have like an exec team and heads of who are also just as keen. It's when they're not, that's when the challenges start to come. Being able to feed back everything that has been said across the program to the execs obviously just fuels them and excites them as well. And I think that definitely is part of that process.
I will say that the champions and the communities are probably just, if not more important, because what I realised quite early on is if you've got the people that are in these communities that are generally people within all the different teams, if they're talking about how good this is, how excited they are, then that excitement spreads, right? It's like it's like a virus spreading, that you want that positive, and rather than it's just another online training course that we've got to do, we're mandated to do. They're talking about how exciting, what the value and the change, but there's less of a change burden on them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, well, I'm moving on to this slide here, but I think the centre section there, clear ownership, not to toot your own horn, Jonlee, but I think it really, really helps when there's a stakeholder pushing the program so much, like yourself. Like when someone knows what the vision is, they know the strategy, they know the business in and out. It just makes communities, change management, culture change in general so much easier. Like if you left tomorrow, let's say, they would probably struggle. Like I think they would, and I think that having that headstrong person to be able to deliver a program and be that spokesperson for it. And now because of those communities of practice and that the Champions Committee, you've kind of grown and we've empowered this different group of people to push that forward. So I definitely think that middle section there, clear ownership, is really, really key to having a data and AI communities of practice, and the culture piece in general. Having that regular engagement. I know it's difficult, and we've had meetings before where you've mentioned, I just don't have capacity at the moment, potentially. It's about acknowledging the importance of it still and picking it back up when is needed. I definitely think the champions themselves probably could be self-sufficient and push that on, targeting a couple of people to be able to even just book the meetings in. I think that's also part of it, having to take that pressure off of yourself, who's slightly more senior, and giving it back to those that are within the education, being like, okay, you're now in charge of this, I'm going to come and push it along. But having that wider group that isn't just one or two people, it's actually 20 or it may be more. But yeah, the active communication part, sorry, I'm going middle to left and then I'm going to go right. The active communication part is the comms pieces, the internal Teams channels. I know a lot of our clients have Viva Engage. We now can support, I can actually be dropped into Viva Engage channels and Teams channels to maybe do like updates, polls as sort of like an engagement sec from our side. And yeah, I know we've supported you with comms and that side of things as well. But that is definitely something I think is super important to make sure we get those blogs out, to highlight, do the kudos, hand out those awards, making sure that's company-wide so names can get mentioned of how fantastic they've been doing on the programme, but also the supportive nature of the committee as well. I guess in that sense, it kind of brings it to the collaborative learning, right? Is you get to learn from each other in these sessions, and that is part of this aspect that it is self-sustaining over time, is that you learn, you ask questions, but the program is still finished, and that moves it on to that inclusive and thriving aspect. Anyone can come, not so much the Champions Committee. Obviously, if you're a champion for the program and data and AI, get them involved 100%. But it's about solving problems as well, and keeping that thriving element. I don't know, Danny, if you want to add anything to that aspect.
Yeah, and I think it kind of touches on what you mentioned at the start about ownership, but how communities do become self-sustaining in their own right when they start to flourish and have momentum, because you get people to really want to move this forward. You've got Jonlee, as you said, you are senior, you're very busy, you can step out of this, and you've got a trusting network that can move the strategy forward. I think some of the indirect kind of ingredients and successes we do see are, we will be hosting a community, and you'll see in the chat there are people talking and troubleshooting and solutionizing it and discussing taking it offline, and then meeting to really put kind of business problems to rest, and like collaborating across different parts of the business, which if we didn't have that forum for them, would that sit in isolation? Would that sit and fester? So there are those indirect kind of successes that we see after that. I guess, is there any ingredients you see missing there, Jonlee, or that any sprinkles Engie have put on top of that?
No, I think, thanks, Jess, for the beginning for the kudos. But I'm quite lucky that my executive director and others across that, top table, they're bought into this as well. They see the value. They've had challenges for years, right? Okay, so that's why, I was brought in 18 months ago. They see the value in that, and they see that they need to make that investment, not just in me, but also in the teams, whether that be time, whether that be own initiatives and things like that help bring that value. So, so lucky that I've got that support, and appreciate that other people listening to this may not have that, but you have to keep being persistent in these things, because the value in all those sort of ingredients that you want to build up this cake community is important. And I did learn early on that you can't take the burden yourself. So yes, as Jess said, sometimes you are too busy, but that's why once you create a repetitive process, then anybody should know what that process is, just like anything. So I think, definitely getting those and sharing it, and I guess not wanting to take all the accountability yourself, although you're driving the program. That's why I think I said I'm bringing, other people from other areas of business in designing the program, because then if I can't make it to one of those sessions, that they're driving it just as much with the same narrative and the same vision as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you did mention a very nice point there around not everybody has that infrastructure that you've mentioned, and I think we've spoke about quite a lot of the successes, but this isn't easy. We're not saying this has happened overnight. A lot of time, effort, investment, and parts where you, as it says here, you've had to reinvigorate engagement have come along. Where have you had to step in to do that, or maybe pull in us to do that, and kind of what have you learned from that in the future?
Yeah, I've learned that, for me, just sort of like going back maybe a year now, is that, many years ago, a lot of these initiatives came from IT, and a lot of data functions now are sort of taking that sideward step out of the traditional IT. And I think that's what's been important for me, is that, although I love my IT colleagues, having that separation to say, look, we're going to drive this, and we're going to sort of take IT on that journey with some of the, whether it be artificial intelligence, and, they're enablers as well. So we're driving those. So I think, it's always, looking at how we can help people do better within those things. Driving the momentum has been a challenge at times, but I do believe that those communities did bring the energy, and that energy can come in waves. I get that, people's holidays and people not in the office, but we tried, I think, on the second phase, and I'll give you kudos, Jess, is Jess coming into the program really brought that sense back in the engagement. So having that mindset change as well, has been able to bring back sort of some of those key drivers of why. We also did, I think we did a session not so long ago, because we did feel that the communities were sort of going up and down. So we went back and said, right, okay, what's our vision? Who are you engaging with? Bring your successors to the meetings, and that sort of give us that sort of refresh format. We talked about it earlier about bringing a buddy and everything else, and re-bringing the awareness campaigns as well. So there's a lot. I think I've discussed quite a lot there. Is there any questions on that one, Danny?
No, I think that reinvigoration, I guess you're almost having to buy back again their incentive or the what's in it for them, and it does very nicely into the next one. Didn't even script this, guys, just saying who's watching. This came quite organic. But they do have to see it as an opportunity, don't they, not an extra burden. So like, I guess, how have you brought them back into that? Because you do have to continuously check, as Greg mentioned, kind of iteration over and over again. So like, how have you brought that back to the fold, that they see this as a benefit and not an extra burden when it just needs to be pulled up again?
Everybody says this. I think it's showing what their value is, giving them, giving the champions the means and the tools or the awareness and I guess the unified vision of how we do those. And I think in the early days they did see it as a burden. Let's be honest, it's like making somebody, oh right, you're going to be a data owner. Oh, okay. But when they actually then see the value of what that can be longer term and how close they get. And one of the things that I try to say to people is that when they start to engage, they become known. And when we sort of talk to these people and we go, okay, you actually know lots within this area and you can help us out in another, and it gives them that sense of appreciation that they've brought something to the table, and then they've been able to see that through. So I think giving that that level of being able to sort of give them ownership and accountability has really drove, I guess, that engagement for me.
Yeah, I guess that's the motivation piece, right? It's like, why do people run marathons? Like, why are they going to attend this meeting when they're really busy? So it's like everyone's motivated by different angles, and as you mentioned, some people are motivated by the good things that they're doing and being able to help and support, and then some people are motivated slightly differently. So it's good to see that angle kind of being hit, and that that does support with the engagement. As you mentioned, like, it's difficult. It's probably one of the most difficult things to keep people who are already very busy engaged in something that doesn't directly like relate to them. But I guess that's the culture change, right? And the passion that you bring to the sessions, it makes people go, oh, but I actually probably should care about this, and this is why. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we wanted to make it clear as well that we weren't creating a dumping ground. I think we discussed this on one of the community sessions. We didn't want to create a dumping ground for data problems to go to these, because we will lose them. They'll just be like, oh, somebody's coming to with me the 50 data quality problems and I don't know where to go. So we have those conversations and say, have those early, I guess, sort of insights to how we can drive those. But yeah, it's I believe that when we sort of originally got the communities together and the champions together, those workshops really helped. The ones that your team ran, I think that brought them into the single view of what we're trying to do, and to collaborate to one another and get to know who the champion is in operations or within sales or within billing and collections and things like that. So you get to know those as well.
Definitely. And it's a lot of a motivation point there, but you've already touched on like exposure, like awareness in the business, like internal kind of PR to this, and that is one of the benefits of starting to go to communities as they grow over time. So I think it takes us quite nicely onto a bit of a wrap-up point, and a lot of these things have been discussed, but I think what's important on this side is some of like the tangible next steps if you are setting up or keen to set up your community internally, and some of the frictions that we do consistently see, and Jess and Jonlee both spoke to some of these, and some of the solutions that you can start to put in place. You don't have to have the perfect environment to start community. We hear a lot, I'm a part of a community, like, what am I supposed to do? I've been nominated, what's even expected of me? And some of those things can be quite simple. There can be ready-made toolkits, a bit of clarity around talking points or micro-learning, or kind of just some quips to send in there. And that really does set a bit of a structure. People like to know what they're going in for. Once you've gone in once, that comfortability is there, a little bit more confidence comes from it, and you start to get exposure. So give it a bit of structure is a starting point there. We also hear a lot, really great idea, don't have time. Probably the one we hear the most of, if anything. And we've spoke before, and Jonlee just mentioned he really got support from exec and the leadership at Engie, but getting that management sponsorship of the individual, and kind of showing this to the manager, what's in it for them, and the team advocacy, or better yet, getting it into OKRs, getting it into objectives. We don't want heroics of these individuals. We don't want it side of desk or just goodwill. We want them to feel empowered and that the business is really taking this seriously, that they're contributing and they're helping their development at the same time. And then the last part, which I think links to that, if you kind of go from an objective OKR perspective, is like, what's in it for me? I've got all these things to do. Like, why am I going to turn up? And that's evidencing that communities do bring out value to what they care about. And what do people care about mostly? Less doing the same thing, less time spent on stuff that is broken, kind of faster decisions, like solutionizing in shared experiences, not the dumping ground Jonlee mentioned, but really productive conversations. And that's what this is about, like those shared concrete named wins. So they are known challenges that I think I saw Jonlee nodding her head quite severely there. But hopefully that puts a few things in place that you can take off their next step. But leaves us with a nice chunk of time for some Q&A. I guess before we do that, Jonlee, is there any other frictions around there that are quite categorically you can share any solutions for?
Oh, I don't know about solutions. I think, as you may have figured, it wasn't easy to start with, right? A lot of it's new. I think historically, if you've worked in an IT or an organization, these kind of communities are very much like center of excellence, but not for a technical approach as such. So think about it like that. There's plenty of research and help out there around the center of excellence models, but data literacy guys have put a completely different spin from the communities, which is massively positive and worked well for us. But for me, just like any data person or leadership, doesn't have to be a data person, stay engaged, stay positive. There's many of nights where I've gone, this is tough. I don't know what the answers are, but you talk through it. Luckily, I had good peers. I've got good network within the organisation. One of them I can see because I've seen the chat is on the call, and soundbiting some of those people about what would they do. Typical kind of questions. I don't know all the answers. Is what I'm saying. So use your network. If you're already engaged with Danny and Jess, use them as well. They're very good people to talk, and even if they haven't got the answers, you can work together and curate the right way forward.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got a question which I'm going to send back to you, Jonlee, actually, as the expert setting this up. And there's a few questions in one. So one is like, what is your target audience? Is it self-serve type roles, or for everyone go through the learning? And do you treat them differently?
Is this for the community or general?
I'd say community. Start with community, and we'll see if Francis wants to add on any of that.
Yeah, sure. For me, the target audiences for the community, originally I sort of pitched this at the people that are actually doing the hard work, right? The people in the systems, seeing the problems. But we did sort of put it out there, and we got a mixture of, senior management, really engaging with data, and have got a passion for data, which was great. So we had a mixture. So I'd say there's no target audience. I think you do want your people that are really challenged and have a lot of the data challenges, whether it be quality, process, or anything like that. So it could be anybody in terms of the target audience, but I would definitely side towards the people that are doing the hard work and not the ones just doing webcasts.
Yeah, as I think we mentioned previously in the webinar, is that we gave you some more people of who we thought should join the community, and I guess that's how we can support, is that we can actively say, this person seems really engaged, let's reach out to them and say, would you be interested? And I think 2 then joined because of that. So yeah, as Jonlee mentioned, it is kind of open floor to that aspect, and I don't think it should be exclusive. Anyone that's interested, from high, low, like across the whole business, marketing, finance, sales, anyone that is passionate about it should have access to it. Like, it should definitely not be an exclusive thing at all.
No, and it's good that you have that variation. To your point, Jess, I think there's definitely a sense that everybody has problems, right? And sometimes it's good. I'm not going to ever use the analogy on a live webcast that I'd use normally, but it's good to have leadership and people, because guess what? They can make the decision and act. So, somebody that's got the problem, somebody that can make the decision to change a process or a data or whatever it be, it gets done, and it's autonomous at that point then, and then you're not having to go through, well, I need to speak to this data owner or this. They're in that community, they're in that ways of working, which is massively positive for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great question around, if you were to do it again, what would you do differently?
Great question. Great question. Let me just ponder on that one. So we did it. I think I mentioned earlier, we did 2 phases. I think that was the right thing at the time. Looking back now, I probably would have done the full phase of the program, and see the website for what those are. But that's more, we got the engagement from exec, but we didn't run some workshops and we didn't do these kind of things. The bit that really I think I'd value, and I'm going to give him kudos again, is we brought on the second phase, we brought more business people into the project to design the project and have those weekly calls with us, shaping the challenges, how we get better engagement outside of the community. So this is shaping the project and the delivery of the whether it be the education in the community. So having those there for people that know the business, know it better than I do, is only sort of seen there. So I wish I'd have done that earlier. I think if that was Claire that asked that question, and really get that, because we as a head of data, you think you know everything about data, but you don't. So you've got to sort of seek that help out there, and getting that engagement, and also it acts as a we're engaged. Pick the departments that sometimes, not Lucas, not that this is you, pick the departments that sometimes are the most challenging to engage with, right? And not challenging, but sometimes resistant to change, right? Because they will that will then give you your advocate and give you your person that's going to start to talk more, and that's where obviously your communities come in as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Brilliant. Wonderful. Well, I guess this isn't the end of this conversation. Anybody on the live does want to speak to us about it, as Jonlee mentioned, we're all on LinkedIn, or kind of drop us an email that you've got this invite from. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the chat today. It's been great to actually work through it with you, Jonlee, and yeah, just talk about kind of successes, challenges, and really pull it apart for people to take some learnings from.
No, it's been good, and I finally broke the. This is my first webcast, if you hadn't known, because everything was falling over. So I appreciate you staying with us. It's been fun.
Great, love it. I'm sure our marketing team will be bringing you into more on that feedback then.
No, I had to buy a mic for this, so it'll cost me a fortune for a proper setup now.
Got to get some ROI out of that purchase. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous rest of your day. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.